I messed up. So I got access to the ZeroSpace playtest because I paid for it. I thought it was going to be up and all accessible like it was with the Stormgate one. No, it was up for a weekend. I only played 2.5 hours. Shh. It was my intention to give you my first impressions after having played for a little bit like I did with the Battle Aces beta. However, I didn't realise it was only up for a weekend, so I only played for like 2.5 hours, thinking I had plenty of time, and I did not. So I'm left with a choice of I could give you my first impression after 2.5 hours, or change my video idea. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an introduction to ZeroSpace, what's different about it when compared to other RTSs, and how I think this is going to shape up going into the future of the RTS genre in 2025. So let's start where all good things do in the game, which is the 3 playable factions. So the game has opted for 3, as many RTSs seem to lean towards these days. The 3 are the Protectorate, the Grell, and the Legion. We'll start with the Protectorate. Now, the Protectorate are the closest comparison to Terran I guess you would get, and they are the standard race of the 3, so to speak. Comparing them to the Terran, though, wouldn't entirely be fair, though, because other than their basic macro being more similar to the Terran, that's really kind of all they've got in common. Otherwise, they're just a kind of interesting faction that bounces between mechanical units, sky units, and ground units. I think in all honesty, they might be closer in comparison to StarCraft 1's Terran than StarCraft 2 Terran. Mainly because mech seems to be more prevalent in their core than it necessarily is in StarCraft 2. Next up is the Grell. The Grell are the sort of Zerg-like or Swarm-like race of ZeroSpace. I think the Grell have possibly the most parallels to StarCraft 2 compared to any of the other factions. They're an insectoid race, and they have a grass mechanic, which is similar to Creep. It isn't exactly the same, because in StarCraft 2, Creep gives bonuses to move speed and all that sort of stuff, and in StarCraft 1, Creep is just a restriction of where they could build. In the Grell's case, it restricts where they can build, and I think it also gives them bonuses in some ways, though I'll be honest, when I was looking through this, I couldn't find out what those bonuses were, if there was any of them. But yeah, the Grell have a really interesting core mechanic in their sort of evolution. We'll come back onto exactly how that works later when I go into top bar abilities, but basically what you need to know is that they have a top bar ability that allows their units to evolve or upgrade it into new versions or stronger versions of them. And yeah, that's a really core mechanic as a part of their faction and faction identity. Super, super interesting concept. Yeah, very fun to play around with. I personally had the hardest time grasping them. I could play the other 2 factions, and I could very quickly figure out how to play them in a consistent way. The Grell, I personally struggled with them the most. I don't know if that's the case for everyone. I just want to tell you all that was how I felt about them. Right, and then finally we have what was my favourite of the 3 that I had the most fun with. We have the Legion. So the Legion are a sort of Hellspawn, I guess, kind of style, which apparently seems to be the theme these days, and has more heroes than any other race. I'll come into heroes in a sec, but basically what you need to know is that they have a mixture of very cheap and free units that they can basically just throw away, and some super, super expensive either heroes or very expensive units, which can be individually upgraded and fine-tuned to be it. These being, I think it was the Terror Tank and the Dreadnought are the 2 big ones. Super interesting concept as a faction. So before we dive into heroes, let's talk about the resources in the game. So there's 2 types of resource, which seems to be the pretty standard these days. You're having one fairly available and another that is a bit more contested across the map. And ZeroSpace seems to stick into that line as well. You have Hexite, which is the main resource. Hexite, these are mined from nodes near your base, and each of the base constructs a little building around your main base, which automatically mines it and increases its efficiency over time. They are limited, they will run out, so you can't just mine one node infinitely. But they're all core built around main bases. And the main bases, it's notable that these Hexite nodes are built automatically. You don't have to build them. They are purely constructed in a time-based restriction, so that sort of macro is handled for you. The other main type of resource is flux, which can be harvested from these little pink nodes which are spread around the map. Flux is mined by workers that you have to manually construct. However, when you construct one, they will just automatically go to the nearest node that isn't occupied. For the Grell and the Protectorate, they can only have 5 of these workers. Now, what's interesting about this is that when one of these workers dies, they automatically respawn after 60 seconds. What's also interesting is when an opponent kills one of these workers, or when you manage to kill one of your opponent's workers, you get a little bit of the flux that they were carrying, which is an interesting little trade-off for trying to encourage sort of interaction across the map. Now, I mentioned that the Protectorate and the Grell could have 5 each. What about the Legion? The Legion, they have smaller workers but in larger quantities, so they can have up to 15 workers, and each node needs 3 to be fully mined at the same efficiency. So basically, they have the same as everyone else, but they're just smaller, more volatile units that are little baby guys. Yeah, that's pretty much the difference for the Legion. Right, so now you understand about resources and the different factions. Let's come into the first in-game unit mechanic, heroes. So in ZeroSpace, you spawn in with hero units, and these heroic units are, I would say they're equivalent to 1.5 tier units. They're strong enough that they can face tier 1 units, definitely in a 1 to 3, 1 to 4, 1 to 5 sort of way. But once they start getting outclassed by tier 2 units, they really drop off quite hard. And it's effectively just their heroic abilities are kind of just additional spellcasters that are sprung into the game. At the moment, there is 1 unique hero for the Grell and the Protectorate, and 3 for the Legion, as well as 2 current generic ones that are currently being shared by all of the races. I'm not sure what the intention is fully, whether all of them are going to have all unique, or whether they're going to have some unique and some generic. But yeah, there's a mix at the moment, and the heroes are a variety. At the moment, the main ones consist of a ranged unit, a melee unit that gets stronger when it's hitting a bunch of stuff, a spellcaster, those are the 3 generic ones, and then you have the racial specific ones. As I said, for the Legion have 3 unique heroes. At the start of each game, this is for all of the races, you pick 1 free hero and you get that hero for free. Generally, with the other 2 races, you can't get another hero. With the Legion, the other 2, you have to build a specific building at tier 2 in order to get and build this another hero. And that's how the Legion get theirs. And the Legion have a lot more stuff to do with upgrading and building those units, because they are effectively just a normal part of their army. So that's the whole Legion mechanic. The Legions are like, they have big heroes, and that's their kind of defining trait. It's also worth noting that when a heroic unit dies, it respawns at your main base after 60 seconds. Effectively, it's just sort of like any hero would be in a MOBA. It's kind of what you would expect anyway. And that's really everything there is to know about the heroes in the game at the moment. Coming on from that, the next thing is mercenaries. So, do you remember in the StarCraft 2 campaign for the Terrans, you had a little mercenary depot where you could recruit these kind of special, stronger units? Well, what if that was just a full mechanic? So there are currently 5 mercenary factions, and each of them come with a set of unique units. And when you start the game, you lock in as your faction, and then you get matched with someone, and then during the selection screen, you can select your mercenaries, and you can see what your opponent's picking, and you can see what you're picking. And you pick your mercenary faction, and throughout their game, they will have a unique place, a unique mercenary spawning point that you have to build, and then unique mercenary units which might have tech requirements or tier requirements in order to unlock or get. I had a lot of fun playing around with the different kinds of mercenary units in this game. Some of my favorite include Giant Monkey. I'm not sure what the actual official in-lore term is for me, but I'm calling it Winston from Overwatch. And then you also had the big moving turret base, which just has like a ginormous cannon. It's a mercenary depot where they spawn from that building, but that building moves and is effectively just a giant tank in itself. A very cool concept. Yeah, and the mercenaries are pretty unique and have a real twist on it. So I'd be very curious to see if there's ever a defined meta for what's being picked or whether it's just preferential. Yeah, mercenaries adding a very delightful or interesting or unique twist to the sort of already existent choice of the three factions. The other main mechanic that makes ZeroSpace unique is called talent and XP. What the hell is talent? So, in the game, you can earn XP through killing enemy units. I think mining resources also gives you it. Or capturing specific towers or capture nodes in the game, and they will give you XP. When you gain XP, you can level up, and in the game you get a talent. And these talents are effectively unlocking various upgrades for your faction. That includes things like reducing your production time. It includes top bar abilities. It includes buffing your top bar abilities and giving them new and unique effects. And that's sort of the style and play. And typically at each level, you'll get one of two choices, and you can pick one, and you get locked out of the other, and it will just keep going like that all the way up to the top. I had a lot of fun playing around with this in the 2 hours and 3 hours that I did get to play. Honestly, it was the bit of the game I was looking forward to playing around with a lot more, because I didn't really get a lot of time to play with it. There were such useful and interesting things as the Protectorate has an ability called Beam Up, where they can click a unit and will teleport back to home, and as well as healing it. You only have one charge of that by default. You can get an upgrade that gives you 10 charges of it instead, which is super cool. Allows you to keep units alive and level up and upgrade, which is super, super cool. It has things like dramatically reducing your production time. I know that one of them reduces the Protectorate's production time by 75%, which is a crazy reduction. And yeah, there's lots of little interesting things about that. I'm very curious to see if they add in more of those, what styles and changes that's going to make across the board. I think most games ended before I got to tier maybe 6 or 7. I didn't often see beyond then, so I can't really comment on anything beyond tier about 7. But it's a little, again, another little interesting tidbit to the game that adds a bit of variety each time you play. And that's kind of every major unique mechanic or mechanical thing that is different. There is a couple of things that are more specific and more generic to the RTS genre that are useful. For example, in ZeroSpace, you can queue up building things that you don't have the resources for yet, and it will just do it when you have the money. For example, if I start the game and I know that I immediately want to fast expand, I can go there and I can build the expansion, and it will tell me, it'll be like, hey, you don't have enough resources for this yet, but it'll leave the silhouette there, and as soon as I get the resources for it, it'll send a builder there straight away. The queue system seems to be pretty smart as well. If you build up 3 things with Hexite and then build 1 thing with Flux, but you have enough Flux and Hexite for it immediately, it'll build the thing for you immediately. I definitely think that system could become a little bit unintuitive with odd specific situations like that, but it's super fascinating, and it's something that genuinely kind of fucked with me when I went back to playing Stormgate and StarCraft 2 afterwards, because I realized what it enables you to do is it enables you to pretty much pre-queue your build. You start into the game and you can go bang, 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 I want to do all that, and then you spend the entirety of the rest of the first minute focused on your hero and microing against your opponent, rather than worrying about your build order every so often. And that's super freaking cool. Because not only does it reward you for pre-planning, it's much easier to do. It's way, way easier to handle. So yeah, super excited by that, and super excited to see like tiny innovations like that in the RTS space that might expand across the border. I would love to see this exact thing be done in games like Stormgate, for example. It's a fantastically cool little mechanic that I think just helps players get onboarded to the game as well, because you can do stuff without having to sit there and wait for your resources every single time. So here's where, if I had played the game more, I would have given you my full experience having played the game. However, I've only played it for like 2.5 hours, so I don't feel qualified enough to really give you the long and short of the game. What I can say from my experience of getting into the game is a couple of things. One, the community is extremely lovely. When I played in my 2.5 hours, I had a lot of people teach me or tell me or show me specific things that I didn't know existed, and I wouldn't have known it existed had these people not told me. And that was super great of them. That was super lovely of them. So ZeroSpace community, and to anyone I met on ladder through those few days, thank you. Thank you so much. I can say that the variety of builds and the varieties of styles and all the mercenary stuff and the tech talents and upgrades are super interesting, and I'm really, really looking forward to playing around with that more. I'll also admit that I was hesitant coming into a game with heroes. I don't particularly like heroes in an RTS sort of genre style game, but I think ZeroSpace's heroes strike a perfect balance with being, yeah, they're strong-ish at the beginning, they're not insane, and they're not going to carry you throughout the entire game. And if you lose your hero in the early game, it puts you a little behind, but it isn't horrific, because you can still micro up and macro around heroes pretty easily. Other than that, though, I can't really give you a whole lot more, because I didn't have the opportunity to play a whole lot. The game is, I think, coming back up in late December, maybe in early January, and whenever I do get that, I will 100% be making more stuff. But I'm super excited for the RTS genre throughout all of 2025. I think we've got a great number of games coming into it. We've got, obviously, ZeroSpace, Battle Aces, and Stormgate, and I think Tempest Rising might also be coming out later this year, or later 2025. This is recorded still in December, so, of course. So yeah, we'll see where the RTS genre goes, but I will definitely be there. This will most likely be my last video until 2025. It's December, and Christmas is happening. Having said that, I don't love Christmas, so I might just end up fucking around, and making videos. I will probably try and find some time to stream over the next couple of weeks. So if you are here on my YouTube and aren't already, please go to my Twitch. It's under the same name at the top there, twitch.tv/bandanity, where I will be streaming. Might try streaming on YouTube, I'll be honest. YouTube streaming these days, the ads on Twitch just kind of annoy me a bit too much. So might just end up streaming on Twitch for a bit, on YouTube for a bit, to see if I can... I see if I enjoy that anymore. But yes, regardless, thank you so much for your support over the years. If you're here, if you're new, please make sure that you subscribe and stick around. I'm going to be doing all sorts of RTS content over the year. We've had a pretty good year of growth since I started really focusing on making content. I think only back in August. I've seen my subscribers rate double within 6 months, which is, you know, a pretty good, that's a pretty consistently good growth rate. And I think we've managed to get something like, 100,000 views or watch hours or something like that, which is, an incredible statement for a channel that had, at the start of this year, 80 subscribers. I'm hoping to be doing more stuff throughout the year, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it. My name has been Bandancy. I was about to say I love you, but you know what? Fuck it. Yeah, I love you. Have a wonderful Christmas if I don't see you before then. See you all in the new year. Bye.